Broke Millennial by Erin Lowry. Book Summary. Erin Lowry's Broke Millennial, Stop Scraping By and Get Your Financial Life Together delves into the perilous financial landscape that exists for so many millennials today in their 20s and 30s. In it, she shows how millennials need not just scrape by financially in life, but can start to manage their money and thus their life as a whole much more successfully. Erin Lowry is an author and financial consultant who, in addition to writing Broke Millennial, has also published Broke Millennial Takes on Investing, a beginner's guide to leveling up your money. She has appeared on CBS, CNBC, and Bloomberg and has written for The New York Times, USA Today, and Cosmopolitan. In 2017, MarketWatch named Broke Millennial one of the best money books published that year. Broke Millennial was written as a wake-up call by Erin Lowry to millennials about their finances. Millennials, just to clarify, are those individuals who were born approximately between 1981 and 1996, though there isn't an exact science to the years. They come between Generation X, those born between 1965 and 1980, and Generation Z, those born between roughly 1997 and 2012. Millennials have generally had a tough time of it financially. Many of them were just hoping to enter the job market around the time of the 2008 financial crisis and had much of their 20s blighted by the Great Recession which followed. Moreover, owing to a globalizing jobs market and the breakdown of traditional career paths, this generation has been faced with more than its fair share of financial impediments. But it is Lowry's contention that this need not lead millennials to be broke their entire lives. Rather, many millennials are struggling today because they simply haven't learned the right money lessons. Lowry states that these need not be difficult to acquire and require just some basic changes to your outlook and habits. Lowry breaks these down into 3 key points. Firstly, you need to examine your relationship with money to date. What have been the roadblocks for you that have prevented you from making your financial situation better? Often, it is simply bad budgeting according to Lowry, or rather the fact that we budget, but then we exceed our budgets based on our impulses to reward ourselves regularly. We need to dispense with these impulses if we are to budget and actually save based on our budgets. Lowry argues that some of the reasons why we trip up when trying to adhere to strict budgets can actually be rooted in our life experiences going back decades. She actually recommends that people start keeping a journal about what their spending and saving habits are and what our memories about these topics from when we were much younger are. For instance, in what ways did you acquire money when you were a child? What did you do with it? Was it spent straight away or did your parents set up a bank account for you? What was the attitude of people around you to money? Did they spend it as soon as it was made or did they save some of their money? In the answers to these questions can be found a lot of people's attitudes towards money as they get older. Second, Lowry urges her readers to address how much of their salary they need to live on and how much they can save, and then decide how much money they allocate to various expenses. Central to this is Lowry's analysis of how people spend their money in general. Most people think that they spend money on lots of different things, but when it really comes down to it, we spend the vast majority of our earnings on a very small number of key expenses: housing, transportation, and food. Lowry provides a ratio for how we should allocate these. Our rent or mortgage, i.e. housing, should be taking up 50% of our expenses. Then 20% of our expenses should be allocated on other fixed costs such as transportation. The remaining 30% should be allocated towards everyday expenses, primarily food. The idea here is that you cut your expenses relative to your fixed costs and then save the remaining money. So for instance, if you analyze your current spending and you find that you are spending more money on everyday expenses than you are on housing, then you really are spending far more on everyday expenses than you should be, and you should aim to reduce these, so that whatever you spend on housing, you are only spending about 60% of that sum on everyday expenses such as food. This is a key way of managing your more flexible spending to reduce it and save more. So, for instance, if you are earning $3,000 a month at present and your rent is $1,000, Lowry suggests that you should be spending another $1,000 on transportation and everyday expenses, and then putting the other $1,000 away as savings. If you aren't saving anything in this scenario because you are spending $2,000 on transportation and everyday expenses, well then you really need to examine your everyday expenses and start cutting how much you are spending in this regard dramatically. Thirdly, Lowry argues that you shouldn't just cut up your credit cards as if these are causing your financial problems. Rather, you should keep them but start to use them more wisely. Pay them off monthly so that you don't overspend. This is vital not just in terms of not being billed more, but most especially because it will allow you to start building up a good credit score. And you are going to need a good credit score if you want to buy something very expensive down the line like a house or a car. Your credit score is a track record of how well you can manage debt, and without one, banks will literally have no way of telling whether you are a safe pair of hands for them to loan a large amount of money to. Consequently, your credit cards are necessary not because they extend you a line of extra cash, but because they are your way of building up your credit score for a future date. This, to Lowry, is one of the salient points about how to manage your financial future and stop being a broke millennial. All sounds good, right? Erin Lowry's Broke Millennial, a book for all you 20 or 30-somethings out there, through which you can learn how to improve your finances and your life by more carefully managing your money.